Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Austin here with StarCraft 2 commentary number 18 with the channel's first ever ZvZ matchup between two quite notable channel all-stars, I should say. We have EliteLegend here as our blue Zerg spawning at the bottom left of Metalopolis, and in a close spawn, quite interesting for a Zerg player, we have Zapper, our teal Zerg player. So I've never casted a ZvZ before. I have watched many, and I know it's a very fluctuating kind of playstyle. It's all about the upgrades and the transitions and units chosen and tech. I mean, most matchups are, but Zerg especially, it's about maintaining a faster economy than the opposing Zerg player and outpacing them in terms of resources, upgrades, and units. So that does sound quite general, but in Zerg it's especially emphasized the amount of hatcheries you have as opposed to your opponents. And just ZvZ demands a high level of macro skill. You have to be harassing your opponent's many hatcheries, defending your many hatcheries while focusing on tech, resources, and army production. It's an interesting playstyle, and I'm quite elated to be casting this. I had originally planned a best races game between Zapper and EliteLegend, a duel they had the day after this. So this game I was observing. I was a spectator, so you cannot see any of what I was saying. I was saying things to the party. I was not giving anything away to either player. I was just saying, ooh, as an epic battle unfolded. So you cannot see any of what I said. And I watched this whole game unfold. The following morning, I was not able to play StarCraft that morning, so Zapper and EliteLegend faced off as their best races. That is a TVP. And I hope to cast this game, but I'm quite pressed for time today as a result of an excess of homework and just a number of personal events that have forced me to work hard, and I do not have much. That game is slightly longer than this one, and I just do not simply have the time to cast it. I would love to, and I will definitely, a few episodes from now. Yet for now, I would like to bring you this ZvZ, and of course, I did introduce our players. Just had a little bit of a shaky moment. They're freaking out, worried that I had not. And so we have this late spawning pool here from Zapper. That's a 17 pool, completely outpaced by EliteLegend, as his has finished. And EliteLegend now, with the Overlord Scout, did reach over here. I apologize for that long anecdote. I just needed to catch you up on a number of things. In addition, I would like to make a small announcement. Today's intro is Big Stash Games. That's Chris. I mentioned it in the previous episode, but sadly there were just a few minor errors in his intro, such as the sound was playing out of the left speaker and commentary was actually spelt wrong. I know that sounds major, but the intro itself looks pretty awesome, as you may have seen. Please feel free to vote on which one you prefer. I'd like to settle on one for now. I'm rotating between two. Nonetheless, let us get into our game. We have this spawning pool finally finished from Zapper. Metabolic boost researching from EliteLegend, and now he has two Zerglings. So prior to this game, I have done my fair share of research. Zion and Zapper in school constantly bug me about my lack of knowledge for Zerg upgrades. As you may have seen in past games, I've forgotten Glial Reconstitution, which by the way is Roach Speed, and Pneumatized Carapace, which is Overlord Speed, and Chitness Plating, which is a Ultralisk armor upgrade. So Zapper and Zion, if you're watching this, this is for you. I remember my upgrades now. So we have the one spine crawler here. As you can see, I'm not the most adept ZvZ caster, and we have a double gas here by EliteLegend, largely underused. Not sure exactly what EliteLegend is talking about here with a mineral trick, yet he does have 6 Zerglings, and now metabolically boosted. I did not know that their actual little icons here changed. You may have seen that just now. That is quite interesting. And we now have 3 more spine crawlers from Zapper. Very useful in the early game, and smart play from Zapper. He generally plays random, and I'm quite sure, I was observing this game, I'm quite sure he played random and attained Zerg, and I remember thinking it was quite an interesting selection, as I had never casted a ZvZ and hoped this would be an epic enough game for me to cast, and already it is quite epic. EliteLegend's speed wings here flooding into Zapper's mineral line, just trying to inflict damage, getting the surround on this queen here. It will fall. Yes, it will. A little bit delayed there. Now Zapper will attempt to surround EliteLegend's forces with his drones, yet let us see how many workers have been killed. So 5. That is still quite useful considering the amount of... Zapper has killed 14 units total, so he has outpaced his opponent in terms of units killed, but 5 workers killed will make a difference in the early game, especially for a Zerg player. I think it was a smart investment from Zapper here to have these three spine crawlers, and he does now have a few roaches and lings pouring out of his bases. And by the way, for the relationship between these two players, EliteLegend, as I may have mentioned a few episodes ago, quite a few episodes ago, most probably 14 or something of the sort, is a friend of mine with whom I play hockey. He is a very talented 1v1 player as Terran, but his second race is Zerg, and he was working on his second race skill. And Zapper is a friend from school who has been featured in quite a number of my commentaries. I cannot remember all of them off the top of my head, probably more than half. He is skillful as a random player, and generally, the two did not know each other, but they were introduced through the wonder that is StarCraft. I'm not sure why I said magnet there. Nonetheless, we have a multitude of baneling cocoons from EliteLegend. He did get this nest up as I was rambling on once more. And two spine crawlers just still sitting pretty here for Zapper, and he has these roaches and zerglings not quite partying near his base, and this queen will begin to attack the Overlord. I'm sure... Oh, now we have a small push here from EliteLegend. Banelings did decimate that one spine crawler, so now Zapper will push out, and his opponent does not have enough to deal with this, so he will get a little bit of damage done with these speedlings. One roach will fall, but that is about it for Zapper, for EliteLegend, that he will lose. So he quickly has a little bit of macro underway with these two spine crawlers well placed at the natural, guarding this baneling cocoon, and he has 4 roaches, 2 zerglings, and a queen, as you can see clearly in the production tab. And now, jeez, the supply had been quite close this whole game, and yet suddenly Zapper has soared to 55 population. I suppose with the excess of roaches and lings that he is not, mostly roaches, actually entirely roaches. That was a completely contradictory statement. Originally there was roach ling, and then there was some lings, and then there was all roaches pushing into his opponent's base, and now he does inflict some damage on EliteLegend. He's trying to pull these queens off creep, and the roaches will follow, picking off one of Zapper's, and that was, it's hard to argue both sides. It's hard to see which side is more victorious coming out of that battle. Zapper did lose a few units and did not inflict too much damage, just picked off a couple of roaches. No upgrades on either side, so that is crucial in a ZvZ. No upgrades, and I believe the reason Zapper's leading is because he is what I call naturated. Not quite, actually, on second thought, but his natural is slightly more saturated than his opponent's. And EliteLegend, yeah, he did have those 5 some odd drones that were poorly microed off of his minerals for whatever reason, and he does have the Evo chamber, so slightly outpacing Zapper in terms of upgrades. This could truly be his saving grace, as he's 26 behind in population. And Zapper is looking good so far with the multitude of roaches, the 1 spine crawler, no upgrades, however, and that could be a game changer if EliteLegend is to put this somewhere, this evolution chamber to use. Could be a difference maker, as I always touch upon. I mean, if you watch my commentaries, I hope your gameplay has improved overall, as you have upgraded your units as a result. You may have seen this in the past game and even the game before. Most of them come down to upgrades alone. 332 or 333 or 000 make all of the difference in those late game battles. So we do have the Spire from EliteLegend, who is completely outproducing his opponent in buildings but not in units. Zapper is reaching that naturation point. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. I mentioned naturation, but I did not mention its definition. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember that I did. That was a completely confusing statement. Let me just reiterate. Naturation is when your natural is saturated, and when workers are almost fully occupied with their gathering. As Zapper just has 12 more drones. I thought it was 4, as I saw 4 cocoons, but no, he has 3 hatcheries, 12 more drones. That will render him completely naturated. But we do have Glial Reconstitution from EliteLegend. That is Roach Speed in research, as Zapper gets 2 Evo chambers, so double the evolution power here. Both players with their respective thirds. Zapper leaving 3 idle drones here needlessly, and EliteLegend's beginning to reinforce his worker line, as now 16 lings and 3 roaches for Zapper, so he has just outproduced his opponent in terms of military. And now we will still have Pneumatized Carapace, Overlord Speed. So I love how both the 2 upgrades that I just set off by heart at the beginning of the the replay, actually came up in the game. That is quite ironic, but all of a sudden we have Missile Attacks level 1 and Carapace level 1 for Zapper, in addition to Groove Spines, which I believe is the Hydralisk range upgrade or something of the sort. Please, Zapper and Zion, do not fault me on my lack of knowledge for this one upgrade. It's the only upgrade I do not remember off the top of my head, and we do have finally Missile Attacks level 1 following quickly after Zapper, in addition to finally Metabolic Boost. So both players kind of lacking in their respective upgrades, but now they're almost at an equal point, so they will most probably be at 1-1, and then with speed for roaches and lings. I believe Zapper does not have Glial Reconstitution on these roaches. I'm quite sure it was Elite Legend that researched it. It is tough to keep up in a ZvZ. I find this so difficult to cast, as there are so many upgrades, so much going on, so much harassment, so much production. It is truly difficult to maintain a clear, articulated, and knowledgeable voice all throughout this quite long game. So the Spire here is finished for Elite Legend, and it has been for quite a while, so he will finally begin to produce 3 Mutalisks. Hopefully this will put some harass pressure on Zapper, as he is still 35 population behind his opponent. And let me give you a little bit of a league comparison. Zapper is somewhat bronze-silver, more so of a high mid-silver player overall as random. His weakest race is admittedly, by his own voice, Terran. And Elite Legend is a Platinum 1v1 player as Terran. I'm not sure, I don't believe he is ranked as Zerg, and in Platinum I'm quite sure he's not really afloat as Zerg, so his main race is indeed Terran. And not sure why Elite Legend decides to hit this Overseer here, as these Groove Spine 1-1 Hydralisks will quickly fend off the Muta Harass. So the Mutalisk Harass is quite selective. It relies on your opponent not having produced Mutalisks. In a ZvZ against Roachwing, Mutas are absolutely phenomenal, but when your opponent has acquired Mutalisks, it just becomes the Mutalisks are entirely useless with Hydralisks. A lot of lisks in there indeed, but I hope you understand the gist of what I was saying. Now we suddenly have 5-6 Spore Crawlers producing for Zapper, so a very smart recuperation here in response to that somewhat small Muta Harass, and then we just have a little bit of a push pressure here underway. Just a kind of a punching your opponent in the gut, trying to taunt him onto you, but not stepping into his home turf. Quite a ghetto example, but I hope it helped. Now Elite Legend has outpaced his opponent in supply. Now they're about even, so 137, oh no. Let us look at this Zerg supply just completely skyrocketing. It was 135 to 130 and now 148. Just completely spontaneous. I mean, it's going up, it's going down. Now Zapper at 153. So the Zerg in general has such a production power with enough bases that they can, so many units can stream out of their bases. That's why it is key when you're playing any other race or Zerg, when you're playing a Zerg player, to keep them off balance. If they can get under these 3 fully saturated bases, expanding to the 4th now, Zapper, he has the 4th underway, Elite Legend has no such expansion, then they are dangerous to fight. Protoss, personally I'm a Protoss player, and if I were to have 9 warp gates, that is 9 units simultaneously every 15 seconds, a Zerg player could produce, I'm not even sure, with proper larva inject, could easily produce 15 units at a time under economical circumstances, though, as that would be very expensive. So we have 4 Infestors here from Elite Legend. Interesting late game strategy. Not sure if that's exactly the best transition against this build. Ultralisks would be, I believe Ultralisks would be quite recommendable. And now he is coming in with this massive Zerg air fleet, like you see in those cutscenes over Char. All these overlords dropping out the roaches. Elite Legend trying to not to lose a Muta. He does not, so now hitting hard with his main force. Zapper will quickly respawn. The micro of these Hydralisks will essentially decide the battle. He's trying to come in from a circumferential assault, essentially circumferencing his opponent. Not even sure if that word I said before, circumferential, is a word. And this action is quite exciting. I believe Zapper will come out on top. Not sure exactly why. He has the 1-0 on his lings and 1-1 on his roaches. His opponent does as well. I suppose the difference between the two being Hydralisks and Mutalisks. The fact that Zapper decided to choose Hydralisks immediately upon seeing his opponent's Mutalisk transition, that changed everything. So this Roach Warren was under siege, and the main base did fall. And as I said here, we have just some 10 larvae, and that's just 10 units off of one base, and often the other bases are put to use. So the transition there, Hydra to Muta, EliteLegend could have played a slightly better late game. I'm still not sure exactly how he's going to face off. He does have 3 queens, I believe, across 3 overlords, with just infestors essentially comprising his ground force. So Zapper will attempt the push. He's massing just outside of his opponent's space. So as I said, the jabbing in the gut analogy, he is putting on some pressure. These 3 spine crawlers rendered useless against 2/2 roaches. So he did have the 2/2 upgrades in production. I apologize for not noticing that. And the Hydralisks are just so powerful without proper counters. As a Zerg player, infestors will prove quite useful. I'm not sure exactly how he would land these fungals. He has a very nice fungal growth there, so reducing these roaches' health to an extremely low state. Another nice fungal landing, but EliteLegend is spreading out his fungals too much. He finally spawns an infested Terran. I suppose he had run out of energy, so these infested Terran will deal some damage, but against a 2/2 Zerg ground army, I'm not sure if EliteLegend is going to be able to handle this push. He's pulling the overlords away to avoid losing supply, but he only pulled a few of them away. Most of them are picked off. He will most probably be supply blocked in the next few minutes. He has 2 more spine crawlers in his main base, trying desperately to fend off. He has the Greater Spire in production, so somehow EliteLegend is able to fend off his opponent's assault, which is quite unfeasible. He does have the spawning pool reproducing in 12 Zerglings. Not sure how that's even possible. If he has 12 Zerglings produce, oh, his spawning pool is coming under siege. So smartly making another in predicting that demise of his spawning pool. So this infestation pit contracting and expanding as it quickly falls to Zapper's ground army. So I'm just not sure if EliteLegend is going to be the fend off. It is looking quite unlikely for him. We can most probably expect a GG in the next few minutes. He has an insane amount of spore crawlers here. That is a total of 6. And so this game is definitely nearing a close. I'm truly now EliteLegend is supply block, so I'm essentially almost entirely ready to call it. EliteLegend just has this minor harass on his opponent's overlord count, but this spore crawler will probably deal a ton of damage to them. So now, quite simply put, Zapper just outpaced his opponent in terms of transition. Both players had relatively similar economies, a slightly later 4th here for EliteLegend, and it is not at all put to use. Zapper just managed a more expansive economy, and you put it to use. Let us see here, he has 11,000 minerals. We are 25 minutes into the game. With his raw production power, he could easily get himself up to 200 population in pretty much one production cycle. And we have the Hydralisk done here from Zapper. I suppose it did die as a result of the desperate Mutalisk harass. 2 roaches just chilling out here, hoping to defect to the other side, as theirs did fall. So now EliteLegend's spine crawlers will fall indeed. And that is essentially it. I await a GG from EliteLegend. He is usually a persistent losing type. I have played several 2v2s and 3v3s alongside him, and then 3v3s alongside him in Hesperide. And he's always the last one to GG. Still polite in doing it, but at one point we nearly won a game that Hesperide and I believe we should have GG'd far earlier than we did. And there we are. That's GG from EliteLegend. And Zapper responding quite kindly. So it's great to see a solid game between 2 previously featured players, and EliteLegend here saying too tired to play a decent lol. So he has left the game, and that is pretty much the conclusion to episode number 18. I will make sure to cast the epic DVP that they had between each other the following morning when both players were no longer tired and playing as the top races. Zapper was for once not playing random. Hope you enjoyed the episode, ladies and gentlemen. This is Austin signing off. See you